Hello, everybody. This is Tish Gentili, and welcome to the Awaken Badass podcast. I have an amazing treat for you guys today. I love this woman. Maria Brophy is the author of Art, Money, and Success. She is one of my best friends, but let me give her a proper introduction. So, she is an agent to her husband's art business, Drew Brophy. So, she's a business owner, she's a podcaster, author, coach, YouTuber, gallery owner, best friend, and she's one of the most amazing people I know on a personal level, and I'm so honored to be able to interview you, Maria. And I'm going to close my window here because then all of a sudden somebody's gardening out there, of course. So I have to tell you guys, Maria is a brilliant woman, so you guys are in for a treat. Maria, as your friend, we often don't talk about a lot of the things that you do, but I was so incredibly impressed when I was reading your book. And I mean, I know you're a badass, but I'm like, okay, she's a double, triple, quadruple badass after
come on.
It's true. This is an admiration society here. So I want to give you guys a little backstory about how we met. Maria and I actually met at Toastmasters, right? Maria, you want to tell the story?
Well, yeah, okay. From my point of view, I was going to Toastmasters. I've gone to Toastmasters off and on for 20 years. And I met Tish there. Tish was a new member of the club. And she gave a talk, and it was very enlightening. I can't remember the topic of it, but whatever it was, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I want to hear this woman speak every week because it was so good. It was about goal setting and manifesting and all that stuff. And people at Toastmasters don't usually talk about that stuff. So that's my point of view. And I also said to myself, I have to be friends with this girl.
And so a little bit of the backstory too is actually Maria started one of my mastermind groups, and then I ended up coaching Maria and her husband, but I don't want to focus on that. But her and Drew were one of my absolute all-time favorite people that I coached, and you transformed your business even more.
Yes.
So we'll get into that a little bit. I would love to talk about the mindset behind your book and your business. But if you guys out there, if you're a business owner that you want to create an art business or scale your art business, this book, Art, Money, and Success, is for you. This is a coach in a book.
It is.
I kid you not. I was so incredibly impressed, Maria, and I'm not saying this because you're my friend, although you're my friend because you are amazing. So this book is so practical, but it had everything you need. It had the mindset, it had the practicality, but what I loved so much about your book is how conversational, how so you it was. I felt like you were talking to me, and we've had conversations like this before. This is one of the things I really admire about you is your ability to just speak with your voice of who you are, and it comes across in the book in so many ways. So I want to kind of talk about how you got into being an agent for your husband, Drew Brophy, who, if you guys don't know Drew and his work, he's a world-renowned surf artist, and you should check out their website. He's incredible as an artist, and Maria's his agent, and you manage the business. And I want you to tell everybody the backstory about how you met Drew and how you became his agent and how you started from your corporate job into what you do now. So I think it's an incredible story.
Well, so I was in the insurance industry for a long time, and it was a great job to have. it was a great job because the harder I worked, the more money I made, right? And you could make as much money as you were willing to work for when you're in sales, in insurance. I didn't love it though. And it wasn't fulfilling. And I was actually very surrounded by low vibration people. Pretty much everybody in the company I worked with, everybody in the company that I worked for, they were all just like really miserable. And I never felt like I belonged. But, it was all I knew. Well, and then I met my husband, Drew. I met him, I started dating him, and I watched him painting all the time. And I thought, gosh, like this guy, he's doing all right. He's making a decent living as an artist, but I feel like he could do so much more if he had some help. And even though I don't know anything about the art business, maybe I'm the one to help. And I thought about it for like 5 years. I was terrified to leave my job. It's really one thing that people really need to understand is the better the job you have, the more security you have, actually, the more of an anchor it is, the more you are afraid to leave it. So that's the situation that I was in. But I finally, after 5 years of thinking about it, I finally took the leap and I left that job making good money to make zero and try to figure out how to build Drew's art sales up enough to pay me. And it was a crazy thing to do. And I was advised by people who know a lot more about finances than I do not to do it. But I did it anyway. And I never regretted that decision, never regretted it. What it did was it opened me up to a whole new world of figuring out how to make money with art and analyzing what was working and what wasn't working. And that's how I ended up writing this book. Was I started getting other artists. I have so many friends that are artists, and the art world is not, it's a small world. Everybody kind of knows each other, and people would come to me and say, gosh, you and Drew are having so much success. How are you doing it? How are you doing it? And I started really thinking, like, what is it that we're doing different than other artists? And so I started writing a blog to answer the millions of questions that were coming to me. And then that led into the book. And what I realize now, all these years later, is that I was put on this earth to figure something out and then help other people do the same thing and make it easier for them.
Yeah, that's your purpose. And I love what you said in the book here. You said the day that you left your corporate job was the day that your life truly began. And yeah. I was like, wow, I get chills when I read that because I know you and Drew well, and I know the amazing life that you guys really have created for yourselves. And it's a life that most people like would dream of. You guys have the freedom of time and money and be able to take off when you want to. So I kind of want to get into a little bit of the mindset. And by the way, Maria, as my friend, coached me a few years ago to leave my security because having done it before me, we've been coaching each other ever since, right, Maria?
Oh yeah,
I'm so lucky to have her.
I'm so lucky to have you. I mean, it really is important to have an accountability partner. But yeah, Tish, you had a hard time letting go of that security, but everybody does.
Yes.
You're actually in a better place to make your dreams come true when you have nothing going on in your life because you have nothing to lose. But when you have a good job, good money, good benefits, security, that is how people get stuck in unhappy lives.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring this up because there's a lot of people in this place right now where they want to leave their day job and follow their passion like you did and like I did, or they're scared, and so I want to talk a little bit about the mindset that you talk about in the book because I know you to be a very powerful manifester, you and Drew. And I thought it was really cool how you mentioned in the book that Drew had this one page kind of vision of how his life was going to be. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So when I first started dating Drew, I think we had been dating for maybe 2 or 3 months. Like we were freshly dating. I was infatuated with him. I still am after 25 years. This was
That's so
25 years
cute.
ago. And he lived down the street from me, and we would go back and forth to each other's houses every day. So I was at his house one day, and he had a desk with all his work papers on it and his Mac computer, the one of the first versions, the rounded big old Mac computer. And I was being a snoopy new girlfriend, and I'm like, "Ooh, what's this?" I find this piece of paper on his desk, and it's one page neatly typed up, which was kind of impressive for a surfer who never wore shoes and didn't believe in banks. But he had this neatly typed up piece of paper, and at the heading of it was "My Life." And he had like 5 paragraphs, and each paragraph was a section of his life. Surfing, it was what he wanted. So, surfing, I want to surf the biggest waves all over the world. Art, I want to become known as the best. I want to be the best known surfboard painter in the world. Family, and this was where I like got my attention. I want to be married and have children and have my family travel the world with me. And I was like, ooh, I can sign up for that. Because I had always dreamed of having this traveling lifestyle, this freedom, traveling lifestyle. And back in those days, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't, you weren't able to like do work anywhere from the road. But Drew had figured out how to do it with his painting. So I was just blown away by this idea that you could plan your life out on a piece of paper. And I asked him about it. And I said, what is this? Like, how? And he said, Maria, everything you want is right there. You just have to know what it is you want. And
I
then you
love
have to
it.
go for it. And
Yeah.
that was a big shift. That was a big shift for me in my mind. Right then and there, I decided, yeah, I've always wanted to have this traveling lifestyle, and I am going to figure out how to do it myself. And
You,
we did.
you did, and then some, I think. You guys have accomplished amazing things in your life and in your business, and this is why I kind of wanted to inspire people too, because maybe you can share with us, aside from having a vision, what has worked for you? What do you think is one of the secrets besides being clear, writing it down? What would you say? Because you came from corporate with no knowledge of how to do this business, and now you're amazing at it, and you've created all kinds of things around it. Tell everybody who's wanting to do this, what do you think is the secret, some of the secrets of
Okay.
your
Well, first of
success?
all, let's say I'm gonna I'm gonna give you two that's right off the top of my head. Number one, don't ever think you need credentials for anything. Yes, you need some talent. Yes, you need some knowledge, but you do not need credentials. Drew had one semester of college, and he's been a professional artist his entire life. He's 50 years old.
Wow.
He was a professional artist in his late teen years. That was when he started his art career against the advice of his high school guidance counselor. Um, I went to college for a couple of years and I'm a college dropout. So you don't need credentials to do anything. And you don't know how. So the second thing is you don't need to know how to do everything. I think one of the reasons I've been successful with all the things I've done, that I've done successfully, I've done a lot of things that I failed at too, by the way. But I don't regret any of them. Even the things I lost a ton of money on, I don't regret, because you learn even when you fail, you learn. And to me, that's better than college. That's better than an MBA or an MFA, in the art world. Master of Fine Art seems to be important, but it's not if it's going to, when it comes down to making a living as an artist, that's not what's important. What's important is clarity on what you want, and then just taking action and learning as you go. Learning as you go.
I think that is something that stops a lot of people for sure, is they keep worrying about the how. In fact, I was just in a seminar with a lot of women just now, and I could see that this stops people, because to me, I've completely renamed that idea of failure. I don't know if rename is the right word, but I've reframed the idea of failure to just be information and learning experiences. And I know you'll agree with me that if you're not failing, that means you're not trying big enough. You're not taking any risks. You're just being safe.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. You
yeah.
can't be afraid to lose money or lose time. One of the biggest mistakes Drew and I ever made cost us a lot of money and took us 10 years to pay off that debt. This was back in like 2007, 2008. We decided to start a program where we were printing t-shirts, stickers, art prints, and selling them to hundreds of surf shops across the US. And we didn't know anything about the wholesale business. That's basically wholesale business. We were taking Drew's art and putting it on these products, and then we were producing the products, warehousing them, and then shipping them, selling them and shipping them. We realized after a couple of years of, even though we were making a lot of sales, like the bottom line was we were losing money, because we weren't really smart about the cost of the goods, and we just weren't cut out for a wholesale business. Like, it just does not resonate with us. Having a bunch of employees and a big warehouse and all that, I have to say those were the most unhappy years of my life. I was miserable. Didn't like having that big operation, and we lost a ton of money. But I'll tell you what I learned through that whole process. I gained an understanding of the wholesale business. I gained an understanding of so many things, cost of goods and profit margins and cash flow and all this stuff, that I don't think I would have ever learned in school. It was an expensive lesson, but it also has helped me understand my customers that are wholesale businesses, and I understand what they have to deal with. It's just made us better at business. So I don't
Yeah.
regret that.
I think, especially when we were doing the coaching, you guys had a certain level, a great level actually of success in the past, but the recession really kind of like hit you guys hard. But one of the things that I've noticed, and I want to talk about the poor artist paradigm that you mentioned in here, because when we worked together, you changed powerfully some of your paradigms. And
Absolutely.
one of them was around your money.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me, you just keep making more and more money. You're so lucky. And I thought about it, and I thought Maria permanently shifted her paradigm around money. And artists have this so heavily. I'm sure you've experienced this when you coach artists. So, can you tell the people out there that are struggling what was it that changed your money mindset, your poor artist paradigm that maybe you encountered at times, on your journey?
Well, first, first of all, I want to say the coaching I did with you, I don't know that I would have gotten to that without the coaching because um, sometimes you need to have somebody hold your hand.
Yeah.
And, and you kind of held my hand through the whole thing. But the first thing was recognizing the paradigms, like knowing that they're there, seeing them, and recognizing where they came from. And for me, it was growing up in a very poor household, and the fear of the car breaking down. I remember that being a really big fear because we lived in the country, and if mom's car broke down, we were in deep trouble because we could never afford to fix it. We always had a piece of junk car. There was always emergencies, money emergencies, and it was always scary. Like, I grew up in Maryland where it gets down to freezing at night. And there were times when my parents couldn't afford oil. We had oil that heated the house.
Mm.
And I remember, I mean, this is in the 80s, it cost $70 to fill the oil tank. It's probably like $500 now, but it was $70 back then. And as a kid, I had to get a job. As a young teenager, I had to get a job to make sure we had oil so we wouldn't freeze to
Mm.
death. I mean, just things like that. So anyway, recognizing the paradigms and then where they come from, and then making the decision to change them. And then it's catching what I was saying to myself in my head all the time. And I didn't really realize it until our coaching that I was always saying in my mind, I can't afford this. I can't afford that. Oh, I don't
Mm.
have any money. Oh, I'm going to be broke. Oh, I'm going to lose money. Like it was always all this negative money thoughts running through my mind. And so, it's so funny now that I'm talking about this. I don't really have those thoughts anymore. I don't have those thoughts anymore. It
Yeah.
took a while, but I extinguished those thoughts. I started replacing them with things like, it's a good thing I'm rich. And I was having fun with it, just kind of being playful with it because I didn't really believe I was rich, but I was being playful. I was like, okay, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to laugh about this. And I
I love
remember
it.
and I remember one day when you and I were coaching and I was doing this thing where I got myself in the habit of saying, it's a good thing I'm rich. Um, we had a problem with our van and I had to take it in to get fixed. And I thought it was going to be a minor, minor fix. And the guy said, oh, it's going to be $1,800. And I was in the mechanic's office and I looked at him and I said, well, it's a good thing I'm rich.
I love it.
And, And I wasn't. But, you know, and I didn't really have any money at the time, but I was acting as if, and I was having fun with it. And the guy in line behind me laughed and he said, God, I wish I was rich. I wish I could say that.
You know, I love that story so much. You know, one thing is, thank you for giving me credit as a coach, but a coach is only as good as the person who allows themselves to be coachable, and you're highly coachable. One things that I've noticed about you being your friend is that you take ideas and you run with it. You apply it right away. Like if you think about doing a podcast, the next day the podcast is done. Like you act on stuff. And I also, one thing that I always love about you is you don't put up with any, excuse my language, any bullshit. Like you're very authentic and you're very real. And as I've observed you over the years as your friend, I think that's served you greatly. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but
I have
from
not thought
where
about
I
that.
sit, your authenticity, your ability to say, no, I'm not putting up with that bullshit, I think has really, taken you to the places that you've gone. So, I get inspired by you all the time. So I'll have you know, for those out there that would really love to write a book, you talked about a little bit about how you run your business, but let's talk about being an author. Your book has done amazingly well. And there's a lot of people out there that think about writing a book. And I know you've given me this advice as well, but I want you to say it to people out there who want to create a book or want to create a podcast or anything, especially the book. You were very, first of all, you use the book like your blog, but you are very systematic in writing your book. So, what advice can you give as an author for people who, want to write this amazing book? I love the cover and the title and everything
Well,
too. It's amazing.
well, first of all, let me just say that I had no idea this book was going to end up an Amazon bestseller numerous times. Like I had no idea that anything was going to come of it. I just knew that I wanted to share my strategies for people in the creative world, right? Strategies for making money, because I know there's so many people out there literally suffering, and that's a good word, suffering, because there are people out there that have these beautiful talents, but they get in their own way, and uh, they're just not able to figure it out, or they think they can't figure it out. So my book has actually helped so many people, and I'm so grateful for that, and it makes me so happy. But go back to your question, like how to write a book. Um, my advice is, first of all, just jump in and start freaking writing it. Don't have it all totally planned out. Let it, I mean, some people want to plan it out, and that's fine if you do. I didn't plan mine. I just wrote all these chapters. That's kind of how I do everything in life. I just boo, 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 boo. And then at the end, I kind of put them all together in an orderly fashion that kind was somewhat orderly. Just start writing. Just start writing, and do not write with perfection in mind, because that will stop you from writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I want to make
I,
a comment about that when you're done.
I recommend carving out a little bit of time every day to write. I would say 1 hour, but even if you can't do an hour, 30 minutes, even if you don't know what you're going to write for that 30 minutes, you dedicate that time to sit in front of your computer or whatever you're writing on, and do it at the same time every day. And with that, you will get momentum. And just start writing and then clean it up at the end.
I wanted to say that, you know me, I have a tendency, or used to, not so much anymore, to be a perfectionist. And you broke me of that. Like, Tish, it's not going to be perfect. Just get it done.
I know.
And I always have your voice in my ear about that now. And I feel like, yeah, I've let go a lot of the perfectionism, thank God, because it was really, and you'd be like, it's stopping you from doing this or this or this. So,
Well, I know because you're very analytical,
I am.
and
Yeah.
so analytical people want all the steps, they want everything figured out,
Yep.
and sometimes you just got to be more like a fairy and just, do things instinctively and intuitively, which I
You know,
know you do. You do.
well, you've helped me a lot with that. I will say, I definitely don't do things perfectly at all. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel like, but that's okay because we talked about failure and learning. I wouldn't call it failure, it's just learning, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, for that artist out there, like what would you like to like impart to somebody who really wants to make money from their art? They really want to be successful. You've been doing this a really long time. Like, I want to back up a little bit and say, if you are an artist, do get this book, but what else can you kind of, like, what pearls of wisdom can you give us right now?
Okay, so if you want to do something, look at other people who are doing it, doing what you want to do, and just sort of pay attention to what they're doing and how they're doing it. You want to be successful, read my book, it'll help you. But the other thing is, I know a lot of artists that, I work with so many artists, and I communicate with so many of them. Um, and a lot of them think that they can throw up a website and put stuff on social media and hide away in their house and sell art. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. And I know a lot of artists out there are introverted. I'm married to a very introverted guy. People who meet him have no idea how introverted he is because he knows how to hold a conversation and he's very friendly and welcoming, but he is extremely introverted, and he has taught himself how to get out and meet people, how to do live events. And there are a lot of things you need to do that take you out of your little comfort zone that work. But you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. And if you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone, then just keep at it as a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with doing art as a hobby. That's totally fine.
I agree. We've had many conversations about this. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not moving forward. You're not taking, like we talked about, risks and actions
Yeah.
that are going to really move the needle of your results. So I kind of want to open it up. There's a couple people that said hi, time pass, try lock. If you have any questions for Maria, you can go ahead and post it in the comments here. One thing that I really thought was great about your book, first of all, it's so comprehensive, but you have in each chapter like these worksheets. And I just thought that was brilliant. I'm going to have to be, as I'm finishing my book, there's so many worksheets that even if you're not in the art business, I found them to be uber helpful.
Yeah.
Like how to find your niche and how much money do you really need to earn? What is your, what do you call it? Your BRM, your
Bam, your bare ass
bam, bare
minimums.
ass minimum amount that you need to earn. Like there's just so much practical information. There's sales information. There's how even the information too, when you're talking about introverts, you have so much in there about how to get yourself out there. It's just all step by step. So if anybody wants some advice on their art business right now, or if you want to ask any mindset questions, you have two mindset coaches here. You also coach artists, right? And
I
you have
do.
been doing that for a really long time. So,
I do some
um,
one-on-one coaching. Yeah.
what is the number one thing when you're coaching an artist? What is the number one problem that you find that they have
They
when they
can't figure out how to price things. That is like the biggest problem. And it's not their fault. There
Mm,
is no standard. There's no
right.
standard at all. Pricing is all over the board. Um, and depends on so many different factors. Um, so that yeah, that's the number one problem that I help a lot of artists with.
Do you
And
find that there's a lack of clarity too? Like I know when I coach people, they have way too many ideas. They don't know which ones to implement.
yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's very common. That's another one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They want to do everything. And I always tell them you can do everything, but you're not going to unless you have like a bunch of employees helping you with all these things, you're not going to make it any traction in anything. You really kind of have to niche it down. A lot of artists, they want to create, they want to sell sculptures and they want to sell abstract painting, but they also want to do portraits and cartoons. And I go, yeah, you can do all those. But if you're a solo entrepreneur, you can't market all those things at once successfully and in a way that's going to make money. So you have to choose one thing that you're going to focus on as far as what you're selling and let the other things kind of go to the wayside.
I've seen
It's,
you do that. I've seen you kind of focus on one thing, then add another, add another. I've
yeah.
seen you grow quite a bit as over the years as I've known you. And I even feel that way. I feel like I want to coach everybody. I want to help everybody.
Yeah.
And niching it down, like really making that work before you start adding other things to your business, I think is really critical. It feels limiting initially, but it's not, right? Because if you're not good at one thing, how can you be good at everything? That's my theory.
That plus, if you, well, just using what I do as an example, if I was, I remember when I started my blog in 2009, and I was writing it specifically for artists because I was trying to answer all these people's questions through a blog. And I had a friend who was brilliant social media guy, and he taught me everything I needed to know about social media back in those days. Um, and I really respected his opinion. And he said, "Look, Maria, you're writing your blog for artists, but you should write it for everyone." And I disagreed with him, and that was the one thing I didn't listen to him on. And I'm so glad because if I watered down my articles, I would have had less people find me. An article that I wrote back in I'm trying to think of the year 2011 called How to Price a Wall Mural. And it gives a detail of how you can price murals, because that's a big problem that artists have. To this day, all these years later, that's like my number one blog post that's found through SEO engines. People are landing on that blog post every single day because
That's
that's what they're looking
crazy.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I love
And
that
that's
story.
very niche.
Very niche. So, I want to kind of leave people with some inspiration because we're getting down to the hour. And I want to talk a little bit about manifestation a little bit
Okay.
because you're such a powerful manifester, you and Drew. So aside from, writing the vision, and I know you're a pen to paper gal, you have your pen and paper out every single morning, and so do I. But what would you say to people who, they don't believe they can create their reality? They believe they're at the mercy of all these circumstances and they have to struggle or whatever it is that they're going through. What advice can you give them as the manifester that you are?
Well, my advice would be consider the possibility. Consider it.
Yeah.
If you are doubtful that you can create your own reality, take a moment to look back in time and look at all the decisions that you made in your life that led you to where you are today, whether you're in a happy
Mhm.
marriage, an unhappy marriage, a happy job, an unhappy job, whatever's going on in your life today, your past decisions brought you there, right? Now, how does that tie in with manifestation? Well, I believe that our thoughts create our emotions, which then create our actions, also our decisions, right?
Yeah.
And then that creates our reality.
I so agree. And, when I was thinking about manifestation the other day. As you know, I am exposed to a lot of really great manifestors. And there's a lot of information out there, but for me, it's being letting go of the attachment to having that specific result. Because I think that I
Yes.
believe the universe is always like kind of guiding you towards your next step, but our job is to reduce that internal resistance. And resistance is negative energy, it's doubt, it's fear, all those things. And as we release that resistance and we just let go, it comes for me, it comes a lot faster. And that's, I think, a lot of the inner work for a lot of people, having been in just this seminar too this morning with a lot of lovely ladies, is I can see everybody kind of struggling with this internal resistance. And I think for you, what I see is because you're such a free spirit and you take the time, and you may not even have noticed this, but I notice how much you take time to have fun, how
Mm.
you surround yourself with amazing people, how that can reduce that internal resistance because you're in joy, right? You're
Yeah.
in joy, you're having fun. Like, I haven't seen anybody take as many vacations as Maria and Drew do.
I just got back from a 3-week vacation.
I know. And I'm like, but I think that's the secret to their success. And of course, a lot of people can't take a physical vacation like you guys, but they could do a weekend getaway or whatever. But I truly, as the observer, can see that that is also part of your success. Wouldn't you agree that you take that
Yeah.
downtime, and just kind of let go a little bit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about not getting attached to an outcome. We have a new gal working for us at the gallery, Christine, and I think we're going on 4 months now that she's been working with us, and she's a great manifester. And together we set sales goals for the gallery, monthly and weekly, and we review the money goals and the sales goals and everything. And when, let's say, after she'd been working for us for like 2 months, and we did a trade show, like a live event, and we set a sales goal for that weekend, and we didn't hit it. But here's what's funny. Even though we didn't hit the goal at the event, if you add in what we sold the day after the event, we hit it. But she was disappointed. And I said, she was disappointed that we didn't do the sales at that event. And I said, look, we can't get caught up in that. Like, one thing we have to be really mindful of is to set your goals, to decide what it is you want to create. And if it doesn't happen exactly the way you want it to happen, that's okay. You have to be okay with it. That doesn't mean you stop setting goals. It doesn't mean you stop trying to create great things. It just means, for whatever reason, it wasn't happening. It wasn't in the best interest to happen maybe that weekend. I don't know.
I agree. And I always try to see myself lately as water. Water doesn't resist what's coming up. And it just kind of flows. And a lot of times, and I don't know if you agree with me, that things that I felt that were negative ended up being super positive for me later. So if you could see your reality as everything is working for you, I know it's hard, especially when you go through crises or trauma or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can have that trust in the universe, if you can say, hey, everything is happening for me. I live in a friendly universe. And I know you believe the same, that, you can use it all to your benefit. Nothing has to be labeled as good or bad and so forth. So,
there was many years ago, Drew and I were making a video back in the days of DVDs, and it was a how to paint with paint pens, Drew's techniques. And in the video, he was going to paint various items, surfboards, skateboards, and he was going to paint a pair of shoes. And we needed sponsors to help pay to make the video, to produce it. And I said, wow, Vans shoes would be the perfect partner because, they're big in surf. They're the perfect shoes to paint on. And I had an in with somebody high at the top of Vans, right? And it was a sure thing. Well, I contacted them and they said no. And I was so disappointed. I was just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe they turned us down. This was like the perfect thing for them. And then something so surprising happened. Like a week later, we ended up talking to this guy that works at Converse Shoes, who Drew used to surf with, this guy. And we told him about this DVD, and he said, we'll sponsor it. How much money do you want? I said, 25,000. It's like, no problem. We'll get a check out to you.
Oh, wow. I love that.
$25,000 check. And it was like so easy. And yeah, so it's just funny. Like, I always think about that because while we were turned down by the first company, that first company would have never given us a check that big because they were 10 times smaller of a company, so something better showed up.
Yeah.
And then what came out of that was that relationship with Converse, they ended up doing a line of Drew Brophy Converse shoes that
Wow.
next summer.
I want
And
a pair. Where's my pair?
they are all sold out. It was a one summer thing. They were sold in
Darn. I would have.
Nordstrom's and
Oh,
like
wow.
Macy's. And yeah, it was really awesome.
Wow. I love that. I have to tell you, Maria, you're such a gift in my life. I'm so blessed to have you as my friend.
Thank
And
you.
you're just a badass. You inspire me all the time. So this was
Well, right
so
back at you.
much fun. I will say, you are the sum total of the 5 people you hang around with the most. And Maria and I are firm believers in that. And I
Yeah.
know that you've enriched my life. So like I said, if you are a creative and you want some powerful information, get this book. And Maria, where can they find you, find your book, your podcast? Where can they have access to all this amazing information that you have?
Okay, my book is on Amazon and it's on
Okay.
Audible also, so you can listen
Oh,
to it
nice.
or read it
Yeah.
or get it on Kindle.
Cool.
And you can find me online. It's my name, mariabrophy.com.
If they need your coaching services and what is the name of your podcast?
And my podcast is Art Money Success Podcast with Maria
Nice.
Brophy.
Yeah. I need to listen to your podcast. I did listen to the first couple episodes, but I want to listen to more. So, all right, my friend, we must part ways.
Thank you.
Guys, if you are watching, thank you for watching. I hope this gave you some inspiration and some value. And I will just say, knowing Maria, knowing all that she's accomplished, just do it, right, Maria? Have the
Just
vision
do it. Just
and
do
then get
whatever you
out
want to
there and
do.
do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's how you learn. And I hope that you can, if you're watching this and you really want to step into that new vision, that new picture, this is going to help you with your creative business. So, Maria, thanks for taking your time.
Thank you,
It's so
Tish.
fun. And
Appreciate
thank
it.
you, everybody. I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.